It's actually quite a shame with this game because I wanted to play more of it than I actually ended up playing. But the issue that I had was that my copy broke and I just didn't end up replacing it. But this is one of those games that was enjoyed by quite a lot of people, but I also feel that it kind of falls under the radar when you consider what it actually is. And it's a PSP game, and the way that my copy broke is that the case for the UMD cracked, and so it could lock in place properly, so it just wouldn't read the disc. But I am talking about Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII. So this is basically a prequel to Final Fantasy VII when they were doing the whole big story of Final Fantasy VII thing, that being when they had games like this and Dirge of Cerberus, and they also brought out Advent Children, the film. So this game follows the story of Zack, who is one of the characters in Final Fantasy VII, and it's actually a prequel, so this takes place long before the events of Final Fantasy VII, and so the idea is that you follow Zack on his journey, so you actually learn what happened there. Now, the format of this game, people would say action RPG, and I always find that when people just call things action RPG or turn-based RPG or something like that, it tends to be a bit too generic, and I think this is one of those games where it sort of disguises itself more actiony whilst not technically having all of the fast requirements for your fingers. It's one of those things that, you know, people praise because they have ideas of how things should be and they have an idea of the way that things should be, and so this allows them to say to themselves, okay, this is an action game, this is clearly distinctively different from those turn-based games, therefore I like this, without actually considering what makes it actiony or what makes it turn-based. And I could go on an entire rant about that individually, but I'm not going to right now. But basically, you press the X button to select your command and you scroll through the menu by using the L and R buttons in order to scroll through the different materia. And there's always a delay between when one effect will trigger and when another effect will trigger. But the base idea is that you collect these different types of materia. Materia are the things that you equip in order to be able to use different magic spells and activate different abilities. So for example, you have the green materia, which is your basic magic materia, which will cost MP to use, but you'll also have physical commands through the yellow materia, and they will cost action points to use. So you've got this multiple levels, multiple different types of points to expend, which I suppose sort of encourages a sort of balance between the two. And there is also this big thing about fusing materia, where you can put materia into different slots and sort of fuse them together to create a more powerful materia, or give it some sort of additional effect. Perhaps the strangest element to this game that people like to point to is the leveling up feature, because it appears to be random. Now, it isn't actually random because enemies still do give you experience, you just don't see it. But basically you have this slot machine and it will constantly be spinning, and depending on whether the faces match or whether the numbers match, that will determine different types of attacks that you will gain access to. And it'll also determine when certain materia levels up. And also if you get 3 sevens, then you will also gain a level. But it's not strictly random because you will get experience, and the more experience you get, that increases the probability of getting 3 sevens. It's just a hidden value that the player doesn't see, so it appears to be random when it isn't. And also what makes this different to the Final Fantasy games that were released previous to this is that it's not a game that uses the standard explore the world design. Rather, it has separate missions that you have to accept, and then you will get sent to different battle arenas where you'll have to accomplish certain goals. And that's not me saying that that's a good or a bad thing, that's just me saying that that's the way that this game in particular is. But yeah, unfortunately my disc broke, so I didn't get to complete this game, but I would have, or at least I believe I would have. So this is a game that I was sort of half interested in when it initially came out, although I didn't actually end up getting it. I did hear people talking about it, but I couldn't really join in on the conversation. However, the game was re-released later down the line, and so again I didn't get it straight away, but I sort of hung around for a bit until I was able to get a second-hand copy, and the game I am talking about is Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. So this is basically a prequel to the original Kingdom Hearts, so you don't follow Sora and all that gang in this game. Instead, you follow three characters called Terra, Ventus, and Aqua, and you have to play through the game as all three characters, each with their own individual story, even though they're all very similar, but there are some variations with them. Of course, because you have multiple characters, the individual stories tend to be shorter than a typical Kingdom Hearts game, but you do have to go through all of them in order to fully, properly complete the game. If you don't know what Kingdom Hearts is, I'll be very surprised, but I will give a brief synopsis. The idea of Kingdom Hearts is that it's Final Fantasy meets Disney, although it's almost entirely Disney in that regard. There's only bits and pieces of Final Fantasy here and there, outside of things like spell names and all that lot. But it is an action RPG, and I know I said previously that it's very easy just to call something an action RPG, but what's interesting is that Kingdom Hearts is always the thing that people refer to when they want to talk about action RPG mechanics, which is strange because Kingdom Hearts is not the bastion of action RPG-ness. But anyway, the differences between these three characters, you have Terra, who is basically the slow but strong one, then Ventus is the fast one, and Aqua is the magic-based one, and they all have their own story and it all overlaps, and so each character will visit all the same worlds, but sometimes will visit different parts of different worlds. But enough about that, let's talk about the actual way that the game works, the actual mechanics with the leveling system and all that. Leveling up itself is very simple as you would expect. It is just kill enemies, get experience, and then when you level up you gain some stats. The way that abilities work is that you have a magic deck, or well rather a command deck, meaning that you will have so many slots in which to put a command, and these commands will level up as you kill enemies with them equipped. So for example, you might have a fire spell equipped and it will level up by killing the enemies, not necessarily by using fire but just by having it equipped and killing those enemies. And once you've got multiple commands with their levels maxed out, you can then fuse them together and add an extra ingredient into the mix, and they will give you a new command. So two fires might go to Aethera, which is like a second tier fire spell. But depending on what extra ingredient you add to it, you will also gain a passive skill, and the passive skill will stay on as long as that character has that command equipped, or if you master that command, the passive skill will stay on them, allowing you to equip and unequip it whenever you want from that point on. And there are passive skills that will have multiple stages to them, so you can equip many of them at once in order to have a larger effect. Now what I do like about this command deck thing is that you can actually benefit by having multiple of the same command in the deck at the same time, because each one recharges when you cast a fire spell. For example, it will take a while for it to recharge, so if you equip more than one, you can use fire more than once whilst the other one is recharging. The issue I have with this is that they level up so quickly, and you'll always want to buy new ones just so you're not wasting space on those maxed out commands. But this leveling system I actually did quite like. The issue that I had with the leveling system is that when you get to the super bosses, like that real high end game stuff, there is a lot of grinding, and the game doesn't really have any interesting end game grinding stuff in it. You just have to kill lots of enemies, and the most efficient way to do that is to go to a specific area and use a mega flare and keep leaving and re-entering over and over and over again for hours on end. And there is a glitch in the game where sometimes the enemies don't reach a certain level, so they won't give you as much experience, which is a shame, as it just makes the whole thing just that little bit more boring and a little bit less interesting. But I really do like the nature of how the game is based on this journal, so you have to collect everything and complete all of these challenges, and there's also this Mirage Arena where you'll have all of the different arena battles to do and all these different challenges to do. There is also the command board, which is like this side quest mini game thing, where it's like this board game with dice and all that. It's not that great, but it's okay, I find. There's a little bit of strategy in it when it comes to things like knowing when to use multiple dice. When you want to get an average of, say, 7 for example, then you'll use 2 dice if you really want to land on that 7th spot. Stuff like that. And it's also kind of used to level up some of your commands, but it's so ineffective at doing that. Really, you just do it because it's part of the to-do list. But the super bosses themselves are pretty rubbish, if I'm honest. A lot of it is running around, rolling and using the Thunder Surge, and then healing and running around and just rolling everywhere and all that stuff. Not really all that interesting, but I do have to say that the highlight of this game to me come from the early game stuff and not the post game, which is a shame for an RPG. And I actually did spend a lot of time on this game in the middle of 2015. I did eventually get the platinum. This is a game I really wish I played more of at the time, and in fact, I think that of all of the games in my top 100, this is the one that I was least confident about including. But I think that from what I did play and everything that I learnt about this game just enticed me so much that I just had to include it. And I think I had to include it this highly as well because I really did have a lot of fun playing this game. And this is a game that is very often looked down upon, and it's not really liked all that much, probably because of the series that it's in, and people have high regards for the rest of the games in the series. And this game really takes advantage of long-form gameplay, long-form strategy. And the game I'm talking about is Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter. This is the 5th game in the Breath of Fire series, and whilst the other Breath of Fire games in the series do have more of a focus on turn-based combat and the whole you select your move and then the thing happens, this game didn't do this so much. This game focused more on a environmental style battle system. So you do move around during combat and you do have a set range that you can use. Not actiony stuff where you have to act fast, but more strategic stuff, but in the 3-dimensional moving, walking around the plane thing, which, to be honest, I tend to like less, but I still really liked it on this game. So basically, the way that it works is that your characters take their turns, and when a character has their turn, they are allowed to move so far within a set radius, and they can unleash an attack, and you have to line it all up. But there's no like speed thing, so you can just strategize, which is great. But the thing that I really want to talk about with this game is the long form gameplay that I was talking about, and the thing that I really like, and the thing that games don't really seem to do much these days in regards to long form gameplay. But also, this is a Capcom game, and I have also mentioned that Capcom seem to have a specific formula that I have noticed, and that is that a playthrough is something that you are ranked on, and this game is no exception to this rule. Allow me to explain. This game takes place underground, and the idea is that you have to try to reach the top of this underground city or whatever it is supposed to be. Now, one of the things that the Breath of Fire games are known for is the ability to turn into a dragon, and that is one of the main character's special abilities, where he can turn into a dragon to use more powerful attacks. And this is certainly the case in this game, but they really put a really high-end cost to it. In this game you have something called the D counter, and it starts at 0%, and if it ever reaches 100%, you lose the game. You've got to start again. That is with New Game Plus, because as you fight enemies you'll get experience, and that will allow your characters to level up. But you'll also get party experience, where you can spend that on different characters to level them up as you see fit. Now when you start the game again with a New Game Plus, all the party experience that you didn't spend will carry over, and so that will allow you to save up in one playthrough to help you improve in the next playthrough. This D counter that starts at 0% will slowly rise, and it's always there. It starts at 0% and you'll move around and then it'll go 0.1%, and you'll move around some more and it'll go 0.2%, always going up. Now turning into a dragon in this game makes it go by loads, and using different abilities as a dragon will also drain this D counter. It will shoot right up, but of course you'll be very powerful, so there is that high cost for something that is really powerful. And each playthrough you will be ranked based on your performance, so that will be things such as how often you've saved the game, what your final D ratio was. Sorry, no, your D counter, I'm getting ahead of myself here, what your D counter was, and all of that lot. The rank that you are given is a D ratio, and these all take form in 1 over 2 to the power n, and you want the n to be as low as possible. So a really high rank would be 1/4, and then 1/8 would be lower than that, and then 1/16 would be lower than that, and then 1/32, is that the right term? 1/32 is the one before that, and so on and so forth. And the reason that you want to do this is so that you will gain more access to more areas. There are certain doors, for example, that won't open unless you have a certain D ratio. And I've got to say, I absolutely love it. I love this system. I love this long form strategy and this idea of having all these restrictions and different rules and stuff that you have to work towards in order to be able to unlock so much power. And even something simple like opening a door can be such a tremendous event, and I love that. One of the things that they do, which I think is a bit stupid, is that the more playthroughs you go through, the more you'll see of the story as you progress through. Like, the first time through it'll cut bits out, and then on later playthroughs it will actually show those cutscenes that it missed out. I don't know if there's something in the story as to give any sort of good reason for that. Maybe it will reveal a plot twist or something, I don't really know. But overall, I think this is a really good game, and I really like that system.